Hey everyone, it's Dr. Eric Shoemaker. I'm here with Kim Johansson, and we are doing a workshop today, our webinar called Maximized Mind, Break the Stress Cycle. So Kim, thanks for being with me today.
Great to be here, Eric.
So we're super excited. We actually did a live version of this. A lot of people couldn't come, and then we wanted to make sure they get the same information. And then the people that were there, so if you were there live, thanks for being there. We had a blast. And we're going to take a little deeper dive into some of the things. Some of the feedback I got was like, I couldn't take enough notes. There was so much stuff. So that's why we're doing this. You can kind of watch this at your own speed as well. So if you want to link to either of our services at the end, we'll put that in the comments below. I own Axiom Health Solutions, and Kim owns Clearview Counseling. So we'll take you through how to get a hold of us if you want to. But this is really just a very pertinent topic right now when it comes to stress. We noticed when we did the live event, I just had people raise their hand if they felt like they were under more stress than they were in, like, say, 2020. And I think the pandemic really did a number on people in terms of their total stress levels and anxiety levels. Kim, have you seen that a lot in your people as well?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. A lot more anxiety, a lot more depression, and actually a lot of people complaining more about chronic pain, both
Yeah,
mentally, emotionally, and in their bodies.
absolutely. Yeah, I've seen the same thing. So, what we want to tell you first is, hey, it's okay. You're not alone dealing with that. There's a lot of people doing that with that, but there are a lot of resources that you have, and we're going to try to give you some of those today. So, we're going to talk about how to maximize your mindset. So that means I'm going to help you sleep better. That's one of the things I'm going to talk about today. How to reduce your stress levels and get you back into rest, digest, and heal rather than the fight or flight mode most people are in. So we're going to go ahead and dive in as we go in. So I'll probably take us off the screen while we're going here, Kim, and then we'll come on at the end. So first thing that I wanted to get into here was what the nervous system looks like and the nervous system should look like if you're a balanced person and you want to have a happy, healthy life. So the first thing here is there's two branches of the nervous system, the central nervous system. There is the sympathetic nervous system, and then there's the parasympathetic nervous system. So sympathetic, you've probably heard of this before, which is the fight or flight. So that's like a gas pedal for your body. It's fight or flight. It speeds everything up. So fight or flight, protection and survival, stress response. That's what happens when you see a bear in the woods. And it's a good thing. Stress is good in short bursts because it balances your body out. It can help heal your body. There's a lot that it can do. But chronic stress is what we want to avoid. And that's what we're seeing with so many people is what we call sympathetic overdrive, which means there's too many rocks on this sympathetic side and you're balanced towards fight or flight. Now, what should happen when you see that bear in the woods is all the things you would think. Your heart rate goes up, your blood pressure goes up, your digestion actually goes down because you don't need to digest. You're more anxious because you should be anxious because there's a bear there. But then all of that should shift back to parasympathetic when that bear goes away. That's think brake pedal there. So that's rest, digest, growth, and development. There's a great quote by Bruce Lipton. If you've never read Dr. Bruce Lipton's book, Biology of Belief, I highly recommend it. And he says you can't be in growth and protection at the same time. So most people are in this protection mode. And here comes depression, anxiety, sleep problems, insomnia, chronic pain, because you're not meant to be stuck in this mode. Because now what we see is the bear isn't a real bear. The bear is deadlines, the bear is traffic, the bear is social media, the bear is the 24-hour news cycle. Everything's meant to stress you now. So you have to be very conscious of what you can do to put yourself back over here so you can rest, digest, and heal. And that's really what we're going to talk about. So this is my dog Daisy. So if you think, how do I rest, digest, and heal? Think about channel your inner Daisy. Like, she doesn't run around stressed out. You know, she's very relaxed. She has times when she's out hunting rabbits in the yard, but then she balances that with a lot of parasympathetic over here, and we're going to teach you how to do the same thing. So what we're really discussing today is called sympathetic overdrive. So sympathetic overdrive is when we get stuck on that too far on the left side of that scale. And look what it actually does to your body. So again, what does it do? Dilates the pupil so you can see better, tenses the muscles so you can run, accelerates the heart so you can fight, constricts the blood vessels so you get the blood into your legs so you can run or fight. It does all of these things. It decreases serotonin because you should be anxious. You shouldn't be relaxed. So all of these things happen. Now look at what actually comes about because of all of these physiological changes. Look at what this triggers and ask yourself, isn't this pretty much everyone you know? Isn't this you and everyone that you know? So you can see migraine headaches, TMJ, which is jaw issues, irritable bowel syndrome, um, low back and neck pain because of the tense muscles. And then you get to accelerated heart rate. So POTS, tachycardia, AFib. So many people are being diagnosed with AFib right now. Constricting the blood vessels. We're going to see what? High blood pressure. We're going to see migraines, indigestion. A really important one here, epinephrine and cortisol. The epinephrine, norepinephrine, and cortisol are all stress hormones. What does that cause if you have that for a long period of time? Chronic fatigue, anxiety, migraines, Crohn's disease. You're seeing the same things here, right? And then you get down into what we're going to talk a lot about today is decreasing serotonin. Well, what do you see with decreased serotonin? Depression, fibromyalgia, poor sleep. Serotonin helps you sleep and helps you be happy. So if those things are out of balance, that means we're most likely stuck in this sympathetic overdrive, which is most of society. So we have to work on bringing yourself out of that. And that's what we're going to discuss today. So one way that you can tell if you're stuck in this sympathetic overdrive is this is a great, what I call a wellness number, and it's called heart rate variability. So this is something that you can measure. If you have an Apple Watch, if you have an Oura Ring, if you have a smartphone, you can measure this number. And this tells you, are you in parasympathetic or sympathetic? Are you in fight or flight? Are you in rest or and digest? So the heart rate variability, what this means is if you have a heart rate of 60 beats per minute, it's not actually 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second, 1 second. There's variability in between there. So there's 754 milliseconds, 828 milliseconds, 845 milliseconds. And there's a variability which shows an adaptability in your nervous system. So you want this heart rate variability number to be high. Okay. You want it to be high because that means you're able to adapt to your environment. And the very definition of health is, can you adapt to your environment? Can you go into an area with germs and not get a cold or flu? I do that all the time. I'm around more people with germs than ever because I'm around a lot of people during this time of year, but I don't get what they have because my body's adaptable to it. I hardly ever get that stuff. So I can fight off whatever germs I come in contact with. But it goes with really everything in your body is how well do you adapt? So if your heart rate variability number is high, which means there's variability between the beats there, then that's a much healthier place to be. That means you're in the rest, digest, and heal. So again, low adaptability or low HRV, that's the fight or flight. Look what you're going to have. Imbalance of heart and mind, which means we're talking about blood pressure issues. We're talking about like anxiety and sleep issues, low spirits and depression, easily exhausted, health issues. So if that's you, it's important to start tracking this HRV number. And it's very interesting to see what things are affected or what things affect your HRV. So I'll get into that in a couple of minutes. And then over here, we have high adaptability or high HRV, greater sense of well-being, better physical performance, relaxation, and good sleep. I had an 89 sleep score last night, which I was super thrilled about. I'll go through that more in a minute. Enhanced cognitive performance and lower blood pressure, risk of cardiovascular disease. So if you have low HRV, you're more likely to die of everything. It's an increase in all-cause mortality, especially heart disease and stroke. So we want this HRV number to be as high as possible, and it goes down with age. So you need to be working on changing that and moving that thing up. Okay. So the way that you measure it, if you have an Apple Watch, you can go to your Apple Health. You click on heart and then heart rate variability, and it will actually tell you what your average heart rate variability is. If you want to Google heart rate variability for your age, so I'm 50. If I Google good heart rate variability for 50 years old, it'll tell me what I should be. So when you sleep, like a good one for me would be about 30 when I'm sleeping, about 45 or 50 while I'm awake. It goes down at night a little bit because of the changes in your physiology. But this will tell you your number right here. If you don't have an Apple Watch, you could do Elite HRV. Elite HRV is fantastic. I think it's a few dollars a month, and you just use your cell phone. So they can track it just with your camera on your phone, and it's your camera and your finger, and they can track it on there. I have an Oura Ring, which I just got recently, which I absolutely love. Few $100, but absolutely worth it to me because the subscription per month is like super low, and it tracks so many things, and it gives you real-time feedback on what these things do to your HRV and to your body, to your sleep score, to your heart rate, to your recovery levels, all of those things. So I really love these smart devices. Now, if you want to start looking at your HRV and changing it, there's a few ways to do that. So number one is better sleep, which I'll talk about in a minute. Better sleep raises HRV. Aerobic exercise. So 30 minutes, 5 days a week increases HRV. And we're just talking, mild to moderate exercise, getting on the elliptical machine, doing some weights, we're going for a walk around the block. Meditation and breath work. I'll talk more about meditation in a minute, but this 5x5 breath is really important. These are called coherence breaths. So what you do in a coherence breath is you breathe in for a count of 5, and then you through your nose, and you hold it for a count of 5, and then you breathe out for a count of 5 through your mouth. So in for 5, hold for 5, and out for 5. And if you're watching this online, go ahead and pause it and do that a few times. And it only takes about a minute of doing that before your HRV skyrockets, because it puts you back into the rest, digest, and heal, the parasympathetic mode. And I would do that several times a day. Hydration is another really good one. You should drink half your body weight in ounces every day of water, half your body weight in ounces of water. So I weigh 180 pounds, so I need to get 90 ounces of water. Is that a challenge? Yes. Do I need to work on it? Yes. I mean, I have to be conscious about it, but I feel and sleep so much better when I'm hydrated. And then omega-3 fatty acids, again, super, super important. I talked about the live event, but fish oil, high quality EPA and DHA, like we have if you're a patient in our office, the omega hypo, those have been shown to increase your HRV. So let me give you a couple of examples here. So this is my nighttime HRV on September 14th. Now, what was going on? I was on a guy's weekend, and I call that a zero essential day. I didn't do any of these things. I didn't sleep the night before because we were out late. I didn't exercise that day. I didn't do any meditation or breath work. I was probably dehydrated. I didn't do anything. There's probably a couple of hot dogs that day, definitely a few beers that day. And if you look at my HRV at night, it was terrible. It's 9, which is really, really low. It's just flatlined across here. And then I have another one. This was Wednesday, September 18th, where I didn't do any of those things. No, actually, I did. I'm sorry, the other way. I didn't do any of the bad things, did the good things. So I did all of these things. And look at my HRV. Look how much more variable it was, which it's supposed to be. It shouldn't be flatlined like this. And instead of 9, I was 29, which was really good. And my max was 61 versus my max here being only 16. So basically this night, I didn't even heal while I was sleeping, even though I think this night I went to bed at 11 and I got up at 6. So you would think I got 8 hours of sleep. I was awake a lot of that night. I didn't sleep well. I didn't have a good HRV. So these things definitely affect it. Now, here's another example of that. This is from the Aura Ring again. It also tests your daytime stress. So basically what your HRV and heart rate is during the day. And you see I was in the stressed state up here for an hour and 30 minutes, and I was only restored for 30 minutes. So I didn't do a very good job of balancing things. But then I started doing, I think it was the following day, I did the 5x5 breaths. I started out with good meditation in the morning, and then I did 5x5 breaths several times throughout the day. Look how many times my nervous system dropped back into the rest, digest, and heal down here from boom, down, 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 down. And so instead of the flip-flop, so I was 15 minutes of stress and 3 hours and 45 minutes of restored. This is a much healthier, happier human being. And it just shows you that those 5 essentials, those things really, really matter. So that's why I recommend taking a look at those. Now, before I turn over to Kim here in just a minute, I want to talk about 2 things. So sleep and meditation. I read a book a while back by Joe Dispenza. He's a chiropractor, Dr. Joe Dispenza. He's all over the place. If you find him on YouTube, he does a lot of conferences and things as well. Some of his books I've read in the past, I haven't really gotten into them, but this one I loved because it was very practical on meditation. It's called Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. So if you've struggled with meditation in the past, if you have a hard time with meditation, like turning your brain off, I always thought you just had to sit there with no thoughts, and that doesn't work out very well for me. Probably doesn't work out very well for you. But when he started really telling you how you could break those habitual thoughts and habits, you didn't have you didn't have to keep having the same habits, the same thoughts, the same emotions, the same patterns as you had before. In other words, you could stop being yourself. So the things that you don't like about yourself, you don't have to just keep doing that over and over again. You can control it. So what he talks about in there is most people wake up with the same thoughts, and then they have the same choices, and then the same actions and the same experiences, and they get the same feelings. And then they just start over the next day with the same thing, and they wonder why they're not happy, or they're still, having those same thoughts of anxiety or depression, or I'm not enough, or whatever it is. And for me personally, my same thoughts I'm very much wired towards, I got to fix everything. Um, Nothing's going to go right if I don't make it. I'm expecting things to go wrong and I got to fix it. That's very much me. I'm an 8 on the Enneagram. So that means like, I got to control this. No one's going to support me. There's reasons I've, sure from my childhood that I became that way, but it wasn't serving me now. It's not serving me to be that way. So I said, you know what? I want to stop having this anxiety. I want to stop. I was feeling very anxious a lot. I was feeling angry a lot. I was unhappy a lot of time. And this is, about 6 months ago. And I was like, you know what? I don't want to feel that way anymore. I want to enjoy every day. So I bought this book, read the book, and then I started over here doing this. So new thoughts, new choices, new experiences, new feelings. And I've been happier than I've been in 20 years in the last 6 months from doing the meditations that are in this book. So I'll put a link to the YouTube meditation that I use. So I recommend reading the book first. It's Breaking the Habit of Being Yourself. And then there's several guided meditations on YouTube that are fantastic, but I really recommend reading the book first. So if you're looking for a place to start with meditation, that's what I would recommend. So what he recommends that you go through there is it's a 7-step process. So you don't overwhelm it the first couple of weeks. So in the first week, you just do a short meditation. In the second week, you're doing a different meditation on recognizing your unwanted thoughts and giving those up. You don't have to cling to those anymore. So pruning those away. And then reminding yourself of what you used to be and what you don't want to be and the habits that took you there, and then building a new mind. So creating, here's what I do want to have happen. So for me, it's, hey, I instead of me thinking everything's going to go wrong, this is my best self thinking things are going to go right, thinking people are going to hold up their end of the bargain, that people are going to, unexpectedly bless me, all of those things. And I've been so much happier. And you know what? I've seen way more of that since I've started looking for it. I've seen way more of good things in my life since I started looking for it. And I think that's what will happen for you too. Okay, so then stress, and then I'm going to turn this back over to our sleep. I'm going to turn this back over to Kip. So if you're sitting here right now and you're not sleeping well, average American only sleeps 5.5 hours a night. You should be sleeping between 7 and 8, or really between 7 and 9. Very, very important because this is where your body heals. So you go through these stages of sleep. So there's non-REM, stage 1, that's light sleep, right when you're falling asleep. And you have several of these cycles throughout the night. Okay. So you'll cycle through and you'll start another one. So it goes stage 1, then to stage 2, non-REM stage 2, that's kind of early light sleep. And then you have non-REM stage 3. This is deep sleep. The two most important ones are the ones on the bottom. Non-REM stage 3, deep sleep, is very important for healing your brain and your body. So this is where most healing takes place. Okay. So it's called your glymphatic system kicks in, which means it's draining waste products like beta amyloid out of your brain. People that don't sleep well have been shown to increase the risk of Alzheimer's because they're not cleaning their brain out. They're not getting that flushing of the brain that happens in stage 3 sleep. And then REM sleep, which you've heard of before. Your brain becomes more active. This is where you're dreaming. This is where your body's consolidating memory. So very important for memory and mood, serotonin function. These are very important for that. So what it actually looks like when you do this is, instead of a circle, it looks like this. So this is me sleeping. I slept 9 hours this night. And if you look at this blue in here, that's the deep sleep right here. That's stage 3. So this dark blue down here is deep sleep. And what you're noticing about deep sleep, and what you will notice, is that really only happens in the first part of the night. It doesn't happen from about 4 a.m. on for anybody. So if you're staying up late and you're missing this early sleep right here, you're not just going to tack this on to 6 a.m. You literally miss this deep sleep. That's why it's important to have a sleep cycle or a sleep routine where you go to bed and you get up around the same time. And because you want to make sure you're getting this early good sleep right here. Okay. And then I had several areas of REM sleep in there as well. This up one, this is the ones where I was awake. So several REM sleep blocks in there. Most of it's light sleep, which is pretty normal for most people. So how do you get it to look more like this, where you're getting good deep sleep, you're getting good REM, and you're balancing things out? So a couple sleep levers. Number one is light. You want it to be as dark in your room as you possibly can get it. That's very, very important. You want to avoid blue light, which is reading a device before you go to bed, because blue light decreases melatonin. So either read a regular book or turn your blue light filter on your iPad if you're reading something online, or on your iPad. And then the last one on light is when you can expose yourself to light in the morning. And this is the biggest hack I would say out of all of these. Sunlight exposure in the morning. So looking, sunlight into your eyes. So going outside, getting sunlight. If you do that within 30 minutes of waking up, you only need to do about 5 minutes of it, but it triggers melatonin to kick in 16 hours later. So you can actually feel sleepy and go to sleep at night. So if you have a hard time going to sleep at night, you want to get up and see light in the morning. And if it's dark when you're getting up, then I recommend one of those selfie rings that you can get on Amazon for the people that take selfies all the time. It's a light that you can use. YouTubers use it all the time as well. When I'm brushing my teeth, I turn that on in my bathroom and it simulates sunlight. So same thing there. And then temperature, you want it to be as cold as it could possibly be when you're sleeping. So you want it to be as much like a cave as you can get it to be. So cold at night. And the last one is stress and stimulants. So if you can do some of the things that Kim's going to talk about throughout the day, if you can do some of the 5x5 breaths before you go to sleep, that's huge because that puts your body back into rest, digest, and heal mode. That's much easier to sleep there. And then the other one is stimulants. So you don't really want any stimulants in the form of sugar or caffeine after about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, 3 o'clock in the afternoon, because that absolutely affects your sleep. So if you just start playing with those three things, like the three things I talked about with light, a little bit with temperature, and avoiding those stress and the stress and stimulants. So I actively think about how can I relax my body before I go to sleep, then things are going to work out really well for you. Um, Insomnitol is just really my secret weapon. I'm also going to drop in the comments. You can now get all of our supplements online. So like the Omegas I talked about, the Omega Hypo a few minutes ago is great. The Insomnitol chewables. This is one of the reasons I slept so well last night. I'll drop a link into the online store. So you can order all of these online, even if you're a patient in the office, you get them online and they have free shipping over like $50. So just get delivered straight to your door. So you don't have to worry about us having it on the shelf. Insomnitol has L-theanine, inositol, 5-HTP, which is really important for serotonin, which helps keep you asleep. But the big one for this is L-theanine increases alpha waves in something called, which is sleep, and it increases something called GABA. So if you're laying there at night and you can't sleep, your brain won't turn off. It just keeps running and you think about what you did that day and what you have to do the next day, or you wake up in the middle of the night and it's running and it's running and it's running. It means it's a deficiency in GABA. So L-theanine, which is in here, actually increases GABA in your brain, which is fantastic. So you're able to get to sleep. And then if you do wake up, your brain's not going crazy and you can go back to sleep. So if you want to pick that up, look in the comments below as well, and I'll get that dialed in for everybody. Okay. So Kim, I want you did a great job on Saturday. So just talking people through a little bit about what you do with brain spotting, but also what people could do to be mindful, and the self-compassion side of things, I think is really huge here as well. So if you want to get into some of that, and then we'll talk about some exercises at the end, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And I loved presenting with you the other day and just listening to you go through your slides again. Picked up so many things. So I want to thank you for that too.
Love it. Yeah. Thanks for being here.
Yeah. I mean, you and I've talked about how, we intersect well in regards to our client and our populations and the people that we help and how we help them.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, so brain spotting. So, I am an EMDR certified therapist. I'm also a brain spotting consultant. And a lot of people have heard about EMDR, eye movement desensitization and reprocessing. Not everybody. And then brain spotting, it's actually been around for a while, but it's finally gaining some traction and becoming more mainstream. Both of these are therapies that go a little deeper into the system. So they're not talk therapies, even though we certainly use a combination of cognitive therapies with EMDR and brain spotting. But the idea is what's in the body is in the brain, what's in the brain is in the body. So that's a phrase that you'll hear from brain spotters quite a bit. So we access through the eyes and eye positioning, we're able to access parts of the brain uh, that may have stuck trauma, may have stuck stress. We know the impact on our physical health when it comes to chronic stress. So we dislodge things deeper in the brain so you get more of a full system flush by accessing these therapies. For those of you, a lot of people are familiar with Bissell van der Kolk's book, The Body Keeps the Score. If you haven't read that one, you want to know more about these therapies that go deeper into the brain, into the nervous system. It is absolutely worth a read. So, Eric, if you want to go ahead and go to the next slide, I can kind of jump in. So the way that the therapies work, and then I'm going to piggyback on what Eric talked about a little bit earlier in regards to the nervous system and how, as a mental health therapist, I approach doing this work with folks. So the therapies work. EMDR works with bilateral eye movement. So we're tracking the eyes moving back and forth. The idea is that we're activating the left brain, right brain, where we can actually target, repair, rewire the different connections and all the neurotransmitters that link the two parts of the brain. We really take advantage of neuroplasticity and what we know about our ability to rewire. Brain spotting also accesses those neural networks. Uh, we certainly go deeper into the subconscious. We go subcortical, which means we can go straight to the brain stem. So when Eric talks about fight, flight, freeze, brain spotting is a therapy that allows us to access and reset the brainstem. So when the brainstem is working, this is a graph of what a healthy nervous system would look like. So Eric talked a lot about sympathetic, parasympathetic. So we know like a healthy adult who has what we call a healthy window of tolerance. And this is what we're looking at within the window. We're going to go up and down with that sympathetic and parasympathetic, even throughout the day. Like the graphs that Eric showed as he was tracking when he was in sympathetic and parasympathetic, that was a beautiful window of tolerance, right? But what happens, through our ongoing stress is we actually can bust out of the window. Eric, if you wouldn't mind going to the next one. So here's the thing, we need stress. So we need that ongoing reset of the parasympathetic. Uh, we're supposed to have both stress and relaxation. So more sympathetic arousal, more parasympathetic arousal. Stress is not the issue. In fact, we need it because we know that it washes the brain due to the different chemicals it puts into our system. It can help with things like clarity and focus. It also can help us um, reset in a way that allows for deeper calm once the break, the parasympathetic, kicks back in. But unfortunately, so we crave correction. I guess I just want to say that about the slides. So we actually come into the world, we crave that corrective experience. What goes up must come down, parasympathetic, sympathetic, that back and forth. Like a baby that is crying craves a corrective experience, right? So mom or dad will hold the baby, feed the baby when the baby's hungry. We crave correction. Eric, you want to jump to that next one? Thank you. Uh, so again, stress is not the issue. So if we're in, it's the fact that we're getting too much of it. And whether you're experiencing chronic stress, just stay of the world, our busy lives, overscheduling, and overwhelm, or you're dealing with unprocessed or unintegrated trauma, the brainstem doesn't know the difference. The brainstem knows is that we're in trouble if the brake is no longer working. And again, the parasympathetic would be that brake. So instead of that corrective experience we crave, the up and down within a nice tight window, we actually bust out of it. So over time, when we're not getting correction, we can either be hyper aroused. This would be anxiety. This could lead to cardiovascular issues, our racing hearts, dumping cortisol into our systems and adrenaline. And over time, we actually can go under the window. This is hypoarousal. This would be depression and things like dissociation, where people might describe feeling foggy, feeling numb, not really feeling anything, really feeling disconnected. So the idea is we want to reset the nervous system so we can be in that healthy window. And I will say, oftentimes what people are doing to correct gets us in more trouble. So we might see a lot of addiction in that vein. So folks who maybe are hyper aroused, maybe using depressants like drinking alcohol as a way to down regulate. And then we have folks who may be attempting to upregulate into the window by using stimulants. So, and Eric, I appreciated you also clarifying in our live talk that the things we do to correct go beyond substances. So this could
Right.
be
So not
gambling,
just
this could
like,
be
cocaine we're talking.
all of it.
Yeah. So your
Yes,
phone,
exactly.
food, a lot of people have like food addictions or, food
Yes.
cravings, sugar, all of those things. Those are all you're trying to, again, it's craving the corrective experience. And so there's a reason. Like, it's not that you just have poor willpower. There's a reason. And if your body's out of balance, of course you're going to crave those things a lot more than if your body's in balance, which is why I love being proactive with this. I talked a little bit about the Stephen Covey's 4 quadrants, like the things that Kim's talking about here, the things that I talked about. No one's going to make you do those. No one's going to, hey, wake you up and say, hey, it's an emergency, you need to meditate, or it's an emergency, you need to do this deep breathing, or you have to go for a bird walk, like Kim's going to talk about. No one's going to do that urgently, but it's very important. So you have to carve out time to do that in an intentional fashion. Absolutely.
Well, and as Eric, you say that, it also has, prompts me to jump into the three things that I talk to people a lot about in regards to how we reset the nervous system and get back into our healthy window. So the first would be mindfulness. I'll talk about that, but Eric's also launching me into wanting to talk a little bit about self-compassion. So whether you're above the window or below the window, because of chronic stress and the things we may be doing that are not good for us, that we're all working to change and be better every day, it is important to remember that your brain's actually acting the way it's supposed to. Remember, it's not what's wrong with me, it's what's happened to me. So your brain is operating the way a brain operates in the face of chronic stress, where the brake, the parasympathetic, doesn't get an opportunity to reset.
Kim, what do you mean by
So
that? It's not what's wrong with me, it's what's happened to me. What do you mean by that?
so that's a phrase I believe Bruce Perry and Oprah Winfrey wrote a book together, and that was a key phrase and a mantra throughout that book. So a lot of people are struggling with different things. They're struggling with negative self-talk, critical thinking. A lot of people are dealing with things under the rug, if you will, in the dark because of our shame and our sense of just self-deprecation, quite honestly,
Mm-hmm.
self-loathing. Um, so a lot of the behaviors that people are struggling with, instead of shaking off trauma, as you referenced, the animal, getting chased by the bear,
Mm-hmm.
and I have to shake it off after I escape from the bear. A lot of people don't know to shake it off. So trauma symptoms related to chronic stress can actually lodge in the body
And they
because
start to
instead,
internalize it. Is that right? Like, from what I understand, is you're the expert here, but like self is context versus self is content, right? So like we think it's this happened to me, but it doesn't necessarily be who I am. Like, I say this to people all the time, like fibromyalgia might be where you're at, but it's not who you are. It might be happening to you, but it's not who you are. It's, you're
that's
not inherently bad or inherently weak or inherently stuck with this. It doesn't have to become your identity. You can kind of remove yourself and go, oh, that's just there's a part that's a part of me, or that's a part of my experience, but it's not all of me. I'm not this. I see people really start to own, like, I'm just depressed, and it's like almost a part of the identity it becomes, rather than an experience that they're going through, right?
yeah, and it's a big concept, Eric. In my perspective, as I watch people struggle and I also watch them heal. So
Yeah.
self-compassion is the way that we can keep things moving out of the body, out of the nervous system, versus, oh, there's something just wrong with me. This is about me. So that's where people stop short versus doing the work to process things out with the understanding their brain is actually working the way it's supposed to. And it
Yeah.
is impacting the nervous system. So we have to work with our biology and we have to reset. So
Great.
self-compassion is a way that we can get back into the window, as is mindfulness. And a lot of people think they know when they're out of their window, right? We know when we're hyper aroused or when our nervous system is sleepy when we're hypo aroused. But I also think it's relevant to know when we're in the window. Mindfulness is a way that helps us connect to that place of balance, groundedness, and resilience, because it forces us to slow down. So mindfulness is really about our presence. It's about being present. How powerful in the wake of so many things that feel out of our control to know that in this moment I have control. I have the power over my behavior, over my actions. It's really the only place we actually do. So bringing people into the present is a beautiful opportunity to self-reflect, take the inner pulse. Where am I in the window? Like, am I feeling anxious? What do I need to cue my parasympathetic to correct? Am I feeling really sleepy? Am I feeling out of focus? What do I need to do to wake up my nervous system so that I can feel more balanced and clear. It's really the place where I can experience emotion but not be overwhelmed, which is, I would argue, also a definition of emotional intelligence. So being mindful, being present. If I'm here, I can't be stuck in worry in the past. If I'm here, I can't be stuck in worry in the future. So it's the idea of full presence, and taking the inner pulse. And what I love to say to people is mindfulness is a tool that is accessible to every single one of us. So is meditation. But really, a key difference between being mindful and meditation, and being meditative is mindfulness doesn't have to be in a place where I'm sitting in quietness, or I'm even sitting still. We can do everything mindfully. During our talk, I asked people in the audience, like, how many people know how they got to work this morning? Were you mindful, or were you just thinking, and your brain was just going and you drove to the office and didn't even really remember how you got there? Or how many of you lose your car in the parking lot? You go to the grocery store, you have no idea where you parked when you come back out. I think we all can relate to those moments. So I cue people to practice mindfulness, mindfully drive. Turn off the music, feel the steering wheel, underneath your hands as you're driving. Engage your senses. We can do this even when we're cleaning the dishes. So mindfulness is a way to help reset the nervous system. It slows everything down. We're not lost in chatter, which can actually cue hyperarousal. We're able to take the pulse and truly connect. We crave correction. We also crave connection. You have to start here. We all do. How can I be connected to you if I'm not, or my higher power, or to other people if I'm not connected here first? So mindfulness is a pathway to that deeper sense of connection and self-reflection.
I had a
So
lot of people give
Eric
me
wins.
feedback on mindful eating. So let's go through a few of these because that's a lot of the feedback I got was like, whoa, I could be mindful doing things. People think of mindful as like you have to be a Buddhist monk or something, but
Right.
mindfulness is just being present. So let's talk through a little bit of that. And then like you have some exercises too.
Yeah. So you talked about mindful eating the other day as well. So mindful eating. So a lot of folks are eating on the fly, right? They're eating while they're catching up on voicemails or emails, or in front of the TV at night where we're not even really connecting to our people, um, we're just mindfully or mindlessly shoveling food into our face. So the idea is to slow it down, and it's a great opportunity to practice. So before COVID, I would do the raisin experiment, which is a pretty popular one. You hand out raisins to people and just see how long it takes to keep the raisin in your mouth before it actually dissolves. So you have to resist chewing it and just feel the raisin in your mouth, the texture of it as you play with it with your tongue. And then it can slowly dissolve. That requires mindfulness versus just putting food in your mouth where you might not even taste it and you just swallow it. So, really slowing down and engaging your senses. How does the food smell? Even engaging your visual sense, like what are the colors of the food? Um, really slowing down and focusing only on that next bite. So that's a great way to practice, and it also can help with digestion. We're not, just shoveling food into our mouths. And for those of you who are worrying about eating too much or not eating the right things, mindfulness is a great way that you can be more intentional about those practices as well.
And again, I want
So
to remind
mindful
people,
walking is,
can I, on that one, let me remind people why you're doing this still. Because again, everything we're talking about today is how to shift yourself back into parasympathetic, right? Like how to get yourself
yes.
out of that fight or flight. Um, so you're going to talk about walking. I just wanted to the name 5 things in the room. So as you're going through that, I just started looking around in the office that I'm in, and I bought these pictures on the wall over across here, 5, 7 years ago. And I love the pictures. They're funny. I never look at them, right? I realize I don't even see them over there. But so I was like, name 5 things in the room. I look at those. I look at the lamp over here. I look at the pillow on the chair. That automatically shifts me back into the parasympathetic. Something that simple brings you back to that, which is huge. So I think all of these are fantastic. You were going to talk about like walking in nature too. You talked about the bird walk. You want to talk about that a little bit too?
Yeah, absolutely. And I just want to add one more piece to the bird walk. So there's different mindfulness walks we can do. I actually prescribe, I know we walk our dogs. That's great. We need that. It gets them out, it gets us out. but it may be worth practicing doing some walks even without the dog, where you are able to really engage your senses, how the earth feels under every step, the colors around you. The fall is a great time to be looking at the trees and the different colors. Also, the way the sun may feel on your skin or the breeze that's coming up, and certainly the birds. So, the reason I love the bird walk is I had a client tell me not that long ago, she was listening to a podcast about how, as human beings, we like to hear bird song because there was a time where, hunters gatherers, if we weren't hearing the birds, it might mean that there was danger. So we are programmed and wired to calm at the sound of birds. And so that's one that I'm using right now that I really get a lot of mileage out for myself, and helps me really reset my nervous system. As brain spotters, we like to engage the senses. Brain spotting is a very mindful type of therapy. So we capitalize on this idea. So, for example, a quick way to reset the nervous system is actually taking an essential oil, one of your favorites. Be careful if you're using pure oils, of course, and just putting a couple little dabs right below your nostrils. That goes straight. Our sense of smell is a shortcut, goes straight to the amygdala, threat center of the brain, and that's another way to calm the brainstem pretty quickly. We also use bilateral music. So any kind of music that goes back and forth. I use David Grand. For those of you who have Spotify, any streaming platform has bilateral music. Biolateral, not bilateral. Bilateral might be harsher tones. People don't always enjoy those. But bilateral music, like ocean waves, any music that goes back and forth from ear to ear, is a way that we can calm the parasympathetic. So we
Awesome.
use our senses and we leverage what we can use our senses for in regards to quieting the parasympathetic.
Love
and,
that.
and then I'll just jump into a couple more. But as Eric, you referenced looking around the room. So a bias as brain spotters is when we know this about the way our brains work. If we feel like we're being chased, if we are literally worried about, getting to work late or being chased by a bear, again, the brainstem doesn't know the difference. What tends to happen in mammals is our vision starts to narrow. And the biological response there is due to the fact that we need to know and hone in on where the exit is. What's our exit strategy?
Mm.
So, guess what? You simply looking around your room actually widens your visual field, and it can cue the nervous system because it's cueing the brainstem. Oh, I'm actually okay. So that's kind of another added benefit of practicing that specific one, Eric.
I love it. And I know you're going to get into brain spotting as we wrap up in a second. But for the one that you gave a handout to the people that were there last time, and you talked about, I think it was self-talk. So maybe just reference the thought bubbles. I thought that was powerful. We didn't have a lot of time to go into it, but if you just want to spend a minute on what people could do with like those thought bubbles and self-talk, I think that goes back to the self-compassion side of things. I think that would be really cool.
Yeah, so you'll get this in your handout, and it's these different thought bubbles. So something to remember: how we crave the corrective experience. Remember how it's not what happened to you, or it's not about you. It's not that
Mm.
there's something wrong with you. It's about what's happened to you. When we don't validate that, when we don't practice self compassion, even for our humanness, and that we just, okay, there's something wrong with me because I can't get this together, or I can't stop that bad habit, or I'm just so ashamed all the time. When we get stuck in those places and we rob ourselves of an opportunity to actually clean things out and reset the nervous system, oftentimes that process is stopped, and we start to really beat ourselves up. So we all do this. You don't have to have trauma to have that critical self-talk, um, and there's reasons why it's there. So we won't get into that. But the fact is, when you are able to be mindful, slow down, and notice the thought, it can always be traced back to a thought. So whether you have an ache in your body suddenly, a stomach ache or a headache, you're feeling a painful emotion. When you pause and you can take a mindful breath, you may be able to trace it back to the thought. And I'm telling you, people are amazed when I encourage them to actually track, like identify some of those negative thoughts and actually track them throughout the day. Like maybe just make a note of every time you tell yourself in some way, shape, or form You're not good enough. You failed again. You're not okay. There's something wrong with me. Whatever it is, just track it. Track how many times you say it a day. You'd be surprised. And on that note, the idea is through that mindful practice, we can be intentional about replacing those thoughts. So
Mm.
here you just have an opportunity. The left side of the page, go ahead and just write down maybe 3 thoughts that pop up that are self-critical in nature. And then on the corresponding bubble, write what you would rather believe. Doesn't mean you believe it yet. That's okay. But you write what you'd rather believe, and you can start to play with this idea of, wow, if I really believed that, what's the impact that could have on not only what I do to keep moving forward, stop beating myself up, but how I can have a greater presence in the world.
That's awesome. I think I did a video a while back on how to question your anxious thoughts. It's like from Byron Katie, Loving What Is. And, she talks about when you have that anxious thought, you ask, is it true? First of all, and a lot of times it's not. You can literally look at it, go, well, that's not even true. I just, is it true? Can I know it's true? What's evidence to the contrary, which there's usually a lot. And then how would I feel if I didn't have this thought? And it just shifts you back into like, oh, I don't have to go down this rabbit hole. So yeah, I think that's huge. So talk a little bit about brain spotting and then how people could get a hold of you if they're interested in diving into this a little bit more.
Yeah. So the brain spotting, again, EMDR is bilateral eye movement. With brain spotting, it's more about fixed eye position. So what we do is we help folks what will map brain spots. We all have them. And this is based on the idea that wherever our brain spot is, when we're looking around, uh, those brain spots correlate directly to a part of the brain that may need some attention. So this could be a part of the brain where we have some stuck trauma or some kind of challenge that we're facing. And sometimes we just feel off, right? Like sometimes we don't even know why we feel the way we do. We can't point to a particular catalyst. Uh, what started this experience that I'm having of offness. With brain spotting, you don't necessarily need to know. In fact, you don't need to know. So where we look affects how we feel. So an exercise that I encourage people to do is just to practice this idea of finding your own brain spot. So the way that I set this up is, and you can do this on your own, you can do it for a couple minutes, you can do it for 10 minutes. Whatever time you have, I will say 5 minutes of brain spotting can be better than 5 minutes of talking because we're going deeper in. So you notice, this is how you do the setup. You just notice where maybe you're feeling, or you start with noticing something that's bothering you. It doesn't have to be big, and I encourage you to do this exercise with something small. It could be traffic you're dealing with, or that somebody didn't call you back that you were waiting for the call from. Whatever it is, make sure it's not too big. Once you identify the issue, notice where you feel the most relaxed or least distressed in your body. And because sometimes it's hard to identify a point of relaxation. So where do you feel maybe neutral? Wherever you feel the best in your body, it can be the tip of your nose, it doesn't matter. Uh, find that spot, and then I want you to actually start looking around at your surroundings and find the brain spot, anchor to the brain spot that correlates with that sense of calm or neutrality in your body. And then just start your mindful processing, whatever that issue was. Just see how you can, just notice how you can actually maybe come up with a solution more quickly, where suddenly what was bothering you may no longer have a charge to it. So this is a way that you can practice brain spotting on your own. When you come into the office with a brain spotter, we will help map your brain spots, and there's different ways that we do that depending on what the challenges are. Whether they're in the brain or in the body, we can help you connect to that more, that deeper sense of clean and nervous system reset.
That was interesting in the workshop on Saturday where you had everybody look left and look right and just which one felt better. And everybody had an answer.
Yeah.
And then people were even coming in yesterday in the office saying, hey, yeah, left felt bad. I'm like, why? Like, I don't know. Right felt better. So it's like you said, you don't even have to know. It's just, it calmed your brain down. I think that's a really cool thing. So this is also how to get a hold of Kim here. So that this QR code. And then this is all of her information, including her website, which I will include in the link. I'll put all of this in the links below. This will be a YouTube video. So if you're watching this, you can click in there and find more information on how to get a hold of us as well. So Kim, thanks for being on. I really appreciate it. I think people are going to get a lot out of this, and I'm just really excited to get this to more people in the community.
Yeah, Eric, it was great doing these talks with you. And I learned a lot from you as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
You bet.